So I've decided to do something a little bit different today and move away from doing body work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my radiator in. This one here that I bought some time ago. I've just drilled some holes down the bottom here, put some rib nuts in. You've seen me put rib nuts in before. And I've got a bit of a spacer here going on. But I want this to sit flat on the cross member there. So I'm going to drill these out to 5/8 so it'll fit over the head of the rib nuts. Okay, after a bit of drilling and a little bit of die grinding to elongate the holes just a tiny bit, this should sit flat. And it does. That's excellent. Now all I've got to do is just weld on a couple little ears here. I will have to cut these back as well, which requires taking off the front or maybe just jacking it up or something like that. Anyway, let's move on to the next stage. And with just a couple of plates made up, I'll weld them onto the side here. Drill a couple of holes, drill straight through the actual radiator plate down the bottom there and bolt it on. I'm not too worried about putting any gussets on this, as the radiator should sit quite flat on this and be nice and sturdy. If I do put a little bit of rubber, I can always just put a long piece of rubber all the way across. And by putting a bit of rubber across the top of this and make sure the bolts don't actually touch the metal, that'll isolate the aluminium radiator from the body if I have any electrolysis problems. Well, that was easy. Just a couple of welds, top and bottom, both sides. I just ground them down so that sits flat. Time to drill some holes. That was easy enough. Just a couple of holes drilled into there, nut and bolt it, and a couple on that side as well. Okay, so I've gotten to my first hiccup. I tried to bolt this in, but now with these ears on, I can't get my hand in here or a spanner in here because the guard's in the way to put these bolts in. So what I'm going to have to do is drill a hole right through, quite a large hole here, so that I can put a socket all the way through. So to determine the size of the hole, I'm going to have to measure a 1/2 inch or 13mm socket. So a 1/2 inch quarter drive socket measures in at 17.8. I don't have a 17.8 drill or an 18. I'll just have to take it out to 5/8 like I have on the top here, and then use a die grinder to bring it out to the size I need. So with these holes drilled out and marked to 18mm, I'll just get the die grinder and I'll die grind it out. Now that I've got some holes in here, I can easily put my socket in there. Yeah, that's going to be easier. Well, it's still a little bit difficult, and I nearly dropped the bolt down this other hole here into the chassis. I wouldn't want to do that because it's going to be really hard to fish out. So I've got a little trick here. You just get a little bit of masking tape, scrunch it up, put it in your socket. You could use blue tack or anything, but by putting the bolt in afterwards, it'll just stay there when I turn it upside down. Right, now that this is bolted in, I can bolt my radiator in. Not sure if it's going to clear this here, but if it doesn't, I'll have to unbolt all that as well and cut a piece out of here. I mean, I will cut a piece out of there at a later date, but for now I just want to mock this all up. Okay, that's pretty cool. It just slipped under there. I mean, I won't get that back bolt in, but I'll be able to get the front bolts in, just so we can finish off some of this bracketry, because we're going to have to do something off here as well. There's another alloy plate there that I'll be able to make a bracket and run it from here. I could make something up off here as well, but I'm not sure yet. There we have it, with a bolt here and a bolt here. This radiator, she's not going anywhere. I mean, it does flex a little bit. I think I might utilize the factory holes up here, as I'm not using them anymore because I'm using these. I might just make a simple square bracket to come off this. So what I've decided to do here is make a bracket to go like this. That'll be enough just to hold it all in. And here you have a really simple bracket. It'll just go in the truck up in like that. Well, this bracket here has probably been the easiest thing to do on this truck. And that radiator's in now, and she's not going anywhere. Now what I've got to do is concentrate on a thermostat housing here, top hose, and a bottom hose. I'll also need an overflow bottle that can be bolted onto these here. And the other thing I'm going to need is a thermatic fan. I mean, it's not going to fit behind here, but I've seen them before and I'm pretty sure they put them in front. I've got a couple of Davies Craig thermo fans sitting in the cupboard there. I believe you can reverse them to make them pushes. Yeah, I'm going to have to pull this radiator all out again. I mean, that's fine. But I'm going to have to figure out somehow to mount that thermatic fan. Oh, and another thing I might add is this front here. It's never joined up. So I made something real quick today. I just made a piece to join it and pull it together. It'll have a 5mm plate underneath, and I reckon that'll be plenty enough to join this back together again. I'll bolt it all up, and I'll show you what it looks like. And with a few holes drilled into the fiberglass guards there, I'm done for the day. Probably should clean up this mess first, but that's how that's going to look. Anyway guys, that's a wrap for today. Hopefully I'll catch us on the next one. See ya!